Hey, buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Here's the Storm is the game. And today I'm taking a look at my ultimate Tyrande build. Tyrande is at the very top of the Hero League charts right now. She's the best hero in the game, almost undisputedly so. And this is really the best build for her as far as I'm concerned. It's certainly the build that I am the most successful with, and really allows you to play Tyrande as both a solo healer, but also really a complementary healer that has a lot of utility. So I really do play this build, even if I have another healer with me, just because I think it offers the most to your team as far as total power output is concerned. So let's just run through the talents real quickly, starting with level 1 at Ranger's Mark, Protective Shield, Lunar Blaze, Shadow Stalk, Overflowing Light, True Shot Aura, and Storm Shield. Now, that's a relatively common build for Tyrande. There will be some people who have one talent different here or there, but these are not unusual picks necessarily. Some people will not pick Storm Shield, for instance. They'll take Hunter Swiftness, and a Protective Shield. Some people will take Healing Word as well. But if you're trying to play healer, this build is pretty normal. But let's go ahead and talk about each talent and explain why it's the ultimate version of Tyrande and what makes these talents so important and so strong as far as her kit is concerned. So starting level 1, Ranger's Mark, this lowers the cooldown of Hunter's Mark by 8 seconds. So Hunter's Mark is really quite key to success as a Tyrande player. It's a trait, and it's an active one that a lot of people don't always use when they should, or as regularly as they should. But if you're not using Hunter's Mark every time it's apt and good to do so, then you're certainly wasting a lot of your potential with Tyrande. This not only marks people for 4 seconds, making them visible, which can be great against stealthies if you spot them, or anyone who's about to run into vision, but it also makes them vulnerable for 25% extra damage. Now that is a huge damage debuff, especially when you can cast it as often as you can with this particular talent. This goes off multiple times in any given team fight, increasing your damage potential by a ridiculous amount. And let's see if we can see that in action here against the enemy Arthas. So our normal auto attacks are hitting for 232, and with Hunter's Mark we're hitting for 290. Now that's a pretty big increase just on Tyrande herself, right? But she's not the only person that benefits from this. Your allies do as well. So it really starts to stack up. And if you mark the right person at the right moment, you're absolutely going to shred them. And your team will focus them down with ease. And being able to do that twice as often almost, thanks to Ranger's Mark at level 1, is a huge impact, particularly from the very beginning of the game.
Yes.
With the scaling changes that were made recently, you can really hurt people with Hunter's Mark early on. So many heroes are more easily ganked in the early game that having this option so regularly in the first few levels of the game in the laning phase means you can gank a lot of squishy heroes if you're paired with like a Muradin or somebody else who has a stun. You can just Lunar Flare, Hunter's Mark, and absolutely shred them down and gain a pretty significant early lane and map advantage, as well as an experience and level advantage. So moving on to level 4, let's take a look at Protective Shield. This is an active talent that has a 60-second cooldown, and when you activate it, it provides a shield on an allied hero, or of course yourself, for 15% of their max health for 5 seconds. So Tyrande, as a healer, is not necessarily a high sustain healer. Someone like Brightwing, who's just constantly pumping out heals for free as a part of her trait, is much better at sustain healing. Tyrande is more of a burst healer in a sense, in that she really only has one heal and her ultimate to actually heal at all, and it doesn't hit multiple people, right? It just hits her and one ally. So it might make sense to you in that regard to pick Healing Ward, because it can provide you kind of a base sustain amount of healing every once in a while. But the problem with Healing Ward is that it's just not high impact enough. It doesn't affect the right person in a big way at the right moment, the way that Protective Shield can. And since your heal is not an area of effect, like say Rhaegar's, for instance, I mean, it hits multiple area of effect's not the right term, but hits multiple targets, or like charisms, which is an area of effect. Having 2 castable single target heals makes a big difference, because you can hit one person with Light of Elune and a second person with Protective Shield. So it kind of doubles your impact in key moments. So in a big fight, in an intense key instance of damage, you can still affect 2 people as well as yourself. Whereas with Healing Ward, you could kind of sort of help your entire team. But Healing Ward's also susceptible to damage, so it dies so easily. The Protective Shield is just more predictable, higher impact, and has a higher skill cap, I would say. And it's much better against talented and aware opponents. Now, one thing to note about Protective Shield is that the shield is based on the hero's max health. So for instance, when I cast it on myself, my health goes from basically 3,500 to 4,000. I get a 500 point shield. But if you cast it on Diablo, who has tons of health, it's actually going to mitigate even more damage. So if you're smart with your Protective Shield and you cast it on higher health targets and your Light of Elune, which has a static healing amount, on lower health targets, you can actually maximize your damage mitigation as long as you do get the full use out of that Protective Shield and they burn through all of the damage as necessary. So keep that in mind. Moving on to level 7, we're going to select Lunar Blaze. This increases the range of your Lunar Flare ability by 50%. Lunar Flare is really what makes Tyrande so good. Her healing is really kind of below average. She doesn't have necessarily a ton of damage. She's okay for a support in that regard. Her ult is sometimes a little tricky to use, but it's Lunar Flare and Hunter's Mark that define Tyrande and make her so strong. It gives you so much ganking opportunity, being able to stun someone on command for 1 second, but also doing a pretty significant amount of damage and having a ridiculous range on your stun. I mean, look at this. It's halfway, it's literally the entire screen of vision on this stun. You can hit people from a mile away. It doesn't matter where you're at in a team fight. You can stay so far back and still impact the fight in such significant ways. This allows you to do so many crazy things. Between Tyrande's vision and the range on Lunar Flare, there's practically nowhere on the map that you can't directly impact in some way. So taking the base range on Lunar Flare and increasing it to something this far is just ridiculous. I mean, there are times when you can snipe someone who's sitting at imagine there's a healing fountain here. You can get a kill like that, right? You can owl and stun. You can do so many powerful things. Now, it might seem like, oh, that's pretty low impact. Can I just get closer to people and still hit my stun? It doesn't actually do anything necessarily. That's true in some extent if your team has got perfect positioning and you know exactly what you're doing. This might be wasted from time to time, but for the rest of us, for us average players and merely good players, the opportunities that this range affords certainly can't be passed up. So moving on to Tyrande's heroics, we're going to pick Shadowstalk. Now this is still sort of new. This was changed not too long ago, and it was given a healing effect. At level 20, that healing effect not only stealths all your allies, but also heals them for 560 damage over 8 seconds. And at the conclusion of Shadowstalk, they receive a burst of 219 health as well. So in total, that's something like almost 800 healing over 8 seconds, which is a very long time. 100 health per second is not much when you consider that your primary heal heals for 700. This barely does any more than your static heal, your standard basic heal. Of course, it does it to the whole team, which is nice, but you can't expect Shadowstalk to totally save someone who's on the brink of death, but it certainly does give you a nice sustained level of healing in those big, kind of drawn-out team fights that tend to happen and can make the difference. The stealth also shouldn't be undervalued. That can be very important for helping an ally make a quick escape or setting up your team to do some pretty fun plays like gank the enemy team or approach a position unaware and make a positional play that the enemy's never anticipated. So Starfall is a fine heroic as well. It can actually be pretty impactful and even have some utility thanks to its slow and its zoning potential. But if you're trying to solo heal with Tyrande at all, Shadowstock is actually very important because you need to have something that can affect your entire team and essentially increase their health pools in long engagements by giving them just some extra regen over the period of a short time. So Shadowstock it is. At level 13, we're going to pick Overflowing Light. When you are above 50% health, Light of Elun's allied heal is increased by 35%. So this might be tough to pull off since we may not be able to get Malfurion damaged in any way. But essentially here, this just increases your total healing output, which is particularly nice. Yeah, this is never going to work. Malfurion's going to be healing himself the whole time, probably. But just imagine 35% is quite a bit. It's very substantial and significant. The key here is that you do have to be above 50% health. That should happen a vast majority of the time. There will be instances where you have to heal and you're not above 50%. But because your heal's always healing yourself as well as an ally, it tends to keep Tyrande pretty close to topped off throughout most engagements unless you're getting focused down. But as long as your positioning's okay, more often than not, Overflowing Light will be triggering for the extra heal. And 35% on an already giant heal like Light of Elun is very substantial. It's going to add something like 200 plus health, which makes this almost close to 900 to 1,000 heal at level 20, which is huge because we only have 3,500 health total. So don't undervalue Overflowing Light. There are certainly some other strong talents in this tier. Sprint is great if you're against a gank squad who just keeps killing you and you need an escape. Shrink Ray can do the same. It offers some utility. But if you have to heal as a solo healer, you're the only support on your team, Overflowing Light is going to be worth it more often than not. At level 16, we go with True Shot Aura. With this one, you passively grant 15% extra attack damage to your nearby allies. You'll notice there's this little glowing blue circle that extends out from Tyrande. That is indicating that we do have True Shot Aura active. And you can actually tell what allies also get it because they will get the same little circle. Actually, I guess you can't tell that, but they can tell that when they... Oh, no, it is there. He's just on the mount. Okay. I thought something shady was going on. It's on... There he goes. You should see it around his circle now. There it is. So, that helps you know how far away to be if you want an ally to receive the buff. So see, like now, he doesn't have it, but if we get a little closer, he's going to get it. So you can help kind of monitor if your Butcher or your Thrall, for instance, is getting the buff as needed and make positional adjustments to make sure they continue to get that damage. Just in general, this makes your team so much more stronger on a base level. They can kill people so much quicker. You combine with your Hunter's Mark, and Tyrande essentially enables deaths just left and right. As far as the other talents on this tier, none of them are good enough to make up for the advantages of True Shot Aura. Like, certainly Mark of Mending can increase your healing output to an extent, but you won't need to heal if people die that much faster. So True Shot Aura certainly pays off in the long run here, much more than any other talent in this tier. It's just a fantastic talent that makes Tyrande particularly scary in team fights in late game. And then finally at level 20, we will take Storm Shield. This talent is another one that gives Tyrande essentially another way to keep people alive not just in a single target capacity, but in an entire team capacity. She can affect all 5 people instantly with Storm Shield. This really just gives your team extra health to work with in a team fight or an engagement. If you time it correctly, you can really mitigate a lot of burst damage. It's important to use it when you expect people to be taking damage. If you use it at the wrong time, right, the shield is just going to expire and you'll never get hit. And see, like here we got hit, but the shield didn't absorb anything, so it was totally wasted. As opposed to now when it's burning down our shield and our health stays at the same level. So it's very important that you time Storm Shield correctly if you see like area of effect damage or your team's diving or getting ganked. It can also be great when you're diving the core and you know that people are going to be taking guaranteed damage from core shots. It can give you, an extra 20% of your health total, which is huge. Do keep in mind again that it does affect based on your percentage of max health. So tanks get a bigger benefit from Storage Shield than squishies do. So if there's a Jaina over here and a Diablo over here and you want to maximize your total damage mitigation, cast Storm Shield on the Diablo, right? It's going to have a bigger impact than on the Jaina. But that said, Jaina might need it more because she's squishier. So just use your judgment there. Also keep in mind that sometimes it's better off to let an ally take damage first before Storm Shielding. So now my heal actually does something. If I'm at full health when I Storm Shield, my allies will also be at full health for basically 3 seconds longer, which means I won't have an opportunity to heal until 3 seconds into the fight because everybody's at full health from Storm Shield. So that means I have essentially a 3-second longer cooldown on my heal. It goes from 8 seconds to 11 seconds. Alternatively, if you let somebody take some damage first and then Storm Shield, you'll still be able to heal and activate your cooldown sooner, meaning you might get off 1 or 2 extra Light of Illusions over the course of the skirmish. So keep that little trick in mind as well. Now on this tier, some people will take Hunter's Swiftness. It's a pretty popular talent at level 20 because it does give you some nice movement speed on your ultimate. But honestly, between the stealth and the heal, Shadow Stalk does enough to give your team some survivability and positional advantages that I don't think the movement speed is worth it. Even though 40% for 8 seconds is awfully significant, there aren't enough key moments where that actually does anything, in my mind, to make it advantageous. Storm Shield, you're almost guaranteed to get value on the other hand, so I think it's a much more reliable and impactful talent. So there you have it. That's my ultimate Tyrande build. This build is going to offer you the most success in general as Tyrande, and hopefully increase your win rate, although you should already have a pretty high win rate with Tyrande because she is particularly amazing right now. Just once more real quickly, that's Ranger's Mark, Protective Shield, Lunar Blaze, Shadow Stalk, Overflowing Light, True Shot Aura, and finally Storm Shield. I hope you have fun out there playing this build. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.